We had some serious internet difficulties. Looks like it's back in play. Maybe, maybe not. Trying to look at it right this minute. So I appreciate if y'all jump back in, if those of you can. I'm gonna blame the weather for the piss poor signal because it sure wasn't me. Then again, maybe it was. Who knows? But look, we're gonna have a dope conversation no matter what kind of bugs we're having today. Um, but it does look like we're back. I'm gonna give y'all a second to tune back in with us. It could be internet, could be laptop, you know what I mean, and it could be anything. Cause I got an old laptop. So on that note, I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna throw this little banner up, right? It talks about the website. Y'all can go to www.commonconvo.com to hear some of the past podcasts. We're on Facebook, Instagram, right? You can give to Gelly Rocks at Cash App, F5ENT at PayPal me. But again, got a dope show with y'all today. I got my man M trying to get the signal better. Y'all know how that goes. Snow and all, we're gonna keep it rocking. So it looks like we might be good. Y'all hit me up on the chat or shoot me a text message if it continues to be wonky. No matter what, I'm recording this for the podcast, so you'll be able to see or listen to it later, most def. So here, let me do this. I'm gonna get back and bring him back into the space so that we can rock it out. For sure, for sure. All right, Doc. Let me hit this record button so we can get it back in. All right, so we were talking and chopping it up, and for those of y'all who are out there watching live, and you missed this, I'm sorry. Welcome back. But Em and I was chopping it up and talking about buying land, right? We were talking about you being on a dairy farm, being able to identify, 5 acres of land or whatever plus land that you might want to purchase, and how to use it.
Well, there's nothing wrong. Like I said, a lot of people are doing rental houses and renting houses, and there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with trying to start your own business. You do your due diligence and you figure out what works for you. But what I discovered after taking on my brother's business, I had to deal with unions. I had to deal with insurance. I had to deal with having employees there every day that you could depend on. There was a lot of things I had that were out of my control. Racism in so many forms. But one of the things I learned was that when I started buying stocks, it was like, wait a minute, Pepsi is working for me now. Coca-Cola's working for me now.
Preach on it.
And, so I kind of tried to put myself in a position where every day you use something I own. And, I don't want to sound arrogant or anything, but,
No, sound arrogant. Let's go.
If you get, if you can have something where people have to go to you. So, how did I start buying stocks, or how did I try to figure out, well, what's a good stock and what's a bad stock? Well, I started using what I call common sense. At first, I started looking at, what do I use? Well, if I drink Pepsi or you drink Coke or computers, what kind of computer do you use or do I use? And then the second thing I started doing is, well, what are other people looking at? What are other people using? And so I said,
well, hold that thought before you jump in there, right? So those of y'all who are just tuning in, because I know we had a bit of a lag, and I'll fix this on the podcast piece so you don't hear me repeat this. I'm sitting down with my man, Maurice Sweeney, who is an entrepreneur, ex-farmer, retired farmer, dairy farmer, tobacco farmer, one of the youngest civil rights leaders in his time, still his time, in Louisville, NAACP, Human Rights Commission. You actually and also worked in banking, and we've been friends for a really long time. He's been a mentor, family, uncle, everything that you could want in a friend. And we talk a lot. Often we talk about wealth investment. We talk about land investment. We talk about stocks, how to do it, what you should do, what you might want to look at. And he has a really unique gift, I would say, because he actually fares better than his brokers most of the time. In terms of how he pursues it. And so this is the conversation we're having. I know a lot of people was watching Robin Hood and Stash or whatever was going on as it relates to, the stock market here recently, and people getting big on GameStop, right? Because it was selling for like $4. a couple months ago, and then I think it went up to as high as 600. And so people bought in low, and then they did some quick trading, and folks made a couple $1,000s. But that's not the norm. But it can be long term. That can become your norm long term, and that's kind of part of the conversation we're gonna have. It's still common conversation. It's still an unscripted joint, but we're gonna rock out. So, so I want to jump back because for those who may have missed it, you have a really interesting legacy in Kentucky, being that your dad, if I remember correctly, was identified as one of the wealthiest black men in the country by Jet Magazine. Is that true? Like in the 40s or something like that?
By Ebony.
By Ebony, yeah.
Back in the 60s. And of course, my dad was a dentist, and he owned a lot of property here in Jefferson County. Owned over 500 acres at one point, and had owned 22 acres out there on DuPont Square, out there in out in that area in St. Matthews. But
Wow.
he bought a lot of land. He owned the parking lot across from Louisville Gardens,
Okay.
and sold that in 1947 to buy the farm that we had later on. But he was a civil rights leader too. He was president of the NAACP, and from 1936 through 38, I was president from 83 and 84. He led the fight to equalize the pay between black and white teachers, as well as being the plaintiff to sue the city of Louisville so that blacks could play at Shawnee Golf Course or play golf in the city of Louisville.
Okay.
So, that was his background and some of the things that he did. But he tried to start, he looked into trying to start a bottling plant so he could sell the Joe Louis soda.
Let's go.
So, and he owned he and Frank Stanley owned a skating rink together down on Madison. So he was very much ahead of his time as it related to the business.
So a little bit of Black history as we do this, because it's February, and it's kind of neat because I always thought as I learned more about you and more about your family that your dad is definitely what I would call a hidden hero, right? Definitely, because we don't hear a lot about our non-famous Black folks who have paved the way in our communities. And I feel like you're one of those people. Actually, I know you're one of those people, right? So you get it good, in a sense of, family, where they come from, where you come from, and there. So, but jumping back into the stock piece, because, I understand, I think for a lot of folks, you got to understand there's a variety of ways to invest. And entrepreneurship can be one of the more risky ways of investing, right? It's most people think the stock market is the most risky. I firmly believe owning your own business is one of the most risky, but can be one of the most fulfilling, depending on what you get into it for. But that being said, you have a unique way of looking at the stock market, and a lot of folks, definitely a lot of Black folks, who are saying, hey, we want to build wealth. We're tired of working for, whoever. How do we get into the market? I use an Acorns account, which is cool. My grandfather, when I was little, gave me a penny when I was in like 4th or 5th grade for Christmas, and I was so pissed off because I didn't know what it meant. Right? He gave me a penny and he stuck it in his Christmas card, and he basically was like, "If you invest a penny a day, you'll be a millionaire before you're my age." And I was thinking to myself, "A fucking penny? Really? This is the best you could do?" But what's crazy is he set me on a path. And he set me on a path of collecting my coins and really paying attention to the amount of money that I was spending and what my return was on what it is that I was buying. And by the time I graduated high school, I had like jars and mugs and jars full of coins. And I still do that to this day. If I go to the store and I spend, $1.50, 50 cents goes into a jar, it's kind of a way of saving, kind of spending in the same. So today we have apps that do it for you, like Stash or like an Acorns app. And so I think it's really important to teach our children how to do that thing and how to continually manage, budget, and look at what you're spending and making sure that it works. But then now we get into the stock market, because one of the things Acorn and Stash will do for you is they throw your money in like a mutual fund, or so I think it's called ETF or some kind of fund like that, which allows you to buy percentages of stock. And then that fluctuates over time in the market. But then you can get into the point where you're just buying straight out, right? And so everybody watched this is it an epidemic? With GameStop, what do we call that?
It was just one of those things. I know the Congress is looking at it tomorrow to make sure that people could be players that wanted to be. The thing about the stock market is I got involved, like I said, when I started working for National City Bank. This black lady who worked in human resources said, and you're going to put money here. And back then you could get vested immediately. You didn't have to wait 5 years or 2 years to become vested in your company. So they would match every dollar you saved, they would save. And so, 7 years later after I left, next thing I knew, I had all this money that was in the retirement account. And then somebody told me, said, well, you need to diversify because most of it was in National City stocks. So he said, go out and look and see what you see. So I went out and I went to Cracker Barrel and I saw all these buses pulling up to Cracker Barrel and I saw these old folks getting off the bus and they were shopping before they ate. And I came back and I said, well, how much is Cracker Barrel? And so I bought some Cracker Barrel. And then I said, well, I want to buy what people got to use, got to have. So I said, you got to use LG&E. You can't get around it. You need electricity.
Okay.
So I bought LG&E. So then I said, well, what else do people have to go? And it was hospitals.
Okay.
Can't get out of hospitals, So I bought hospital stocks. And next thing I know, I'd go in a hospital and you'd see an X-ray machine and you'd say, well, how much is that machine cost? They say, oh, about $1 million. I said, well, how many of them do you have? Well, we got them on every floor. So I started doing the math in my head. X-ray machine by GE or else Philips or Siemens were primarily producers of X-ray machines. And you multiply that by the hospitals in the world, in the state, in the city, and you buy that stock. So that's how I did it. So as I said before,
so you look at stocks specifically based on need. So people who are out here in the market is saying, I want to learn how to invest. I want to figure out what is the best thing to invest in. And you're saying, hey, here's the thing. You need toilet paper, right? You use toilet paper every day. So why not invest in a company who's manufacturing toilet paper? Or, maybe it's the logger, right? Maybe there's a publicly traded logging company because you got to get the paper in order to make the toilet paper.
Well, funny you should say that. Everybody knows that during the pandemic, there was a lumber shortage. You couldn't, if you went into Home Depot or Lowe's, it was like the lumber section looked like the toilet paper aisle. There was no lumber to be found. So I said, So I started looking to see, hey, Google, what are some of the biggest lumber producers in the country? Well, there was one company that owned 3,000 acres of lumber in Arkansas, another one that owned 4,000 out west, and another one that made the synthetic wood, like Trex.
Okay.
And so I looked into that, and I bought those companies, and I made some money off of them. But so you can do it that way. Like my wife loves to go to TJ Maxx. So I went in TJ Maxx and I looked at all those people up in there, and then she went into Ross, and I couldn't believe it. I called my broker up. I said, hey, how much is Ross? How much is TJ Maxx? So I bought some of that.
Okay.
So the point is, you kind of look and see what you use, but then start looking at what other people are using.
So a long time ago, we was driving in the middle of BFE, and we was having this conversation about technology and video games. You kept asking me, so this is what, 2000? Oh, it was a long time ago.
It wasn't that long ago. It was probably 16, 17.
Okay. And so you were saying, hey, you were asking me about video games, the games I'm playing. And then all of a sudden, you went into microchips. And in my head, I was like, why the hell is he asking me about microchips? But then I realized everything that I use, every piece of technology I have, has a microchip in it.
Correct.
And then you were saying, okay, well, why not invest in a company who actually makes the functionality of
You're exactly right. The last stock I bought was a company called Himax, and they are in Taiwan. So another thing about buying stocks is don't think worldwide. Don't think just locally. Don't think just Kentucky or United States. Think worldwide. Well, Himax makes those chips that the car automakers are looking for right now.
Okay.
That they're out of. There's a shortage of chips for these electric cars.
Wow.
I think Cody.
So what is Cody? How do you spell that?
Coty.
Coty.
Right.
All right.
So they have the Beyonce perfume, some of the Kardashian stuff, CoverGirl, Calvin Klein. Somebody told me a long time ago, women will always buy perfume, cosmetics, and chocolate.
Okay.
And so
And we just missed Valentine's.
yeah.
Let's go.
So then there's Valentine. But Cody right now is only like $6 and $6.67. Well, I bought it 3 days ago, and it's already up 50 cents to $7.32 today.
Okay.
But the point is, buy low, sell high. When the market's low, then that's a buying opportunity. When it's high, it's a selling opportunity.
Okay.
So the point is that you can get into some of these stocks fairly low, fairly easy. And I said think worldwide. So what's the Tesla of China? Is NIO. So NIO it makes electric cars. I bought them for $9. They're $56 today. I bought them in 2019 for $9. They're $56 today. I bought Ford and GE for $650, and now they're $1150 and $1185.
So making money, really, the art of making money is thinking long term.
It's thinking long term, but thinking forward. Look what's going on. Mm-hmm. Energy, solar.
Got you.
Electric cars. We're in the pandemic. That means biotechnology, biotherapeutic stocks.
Okay.
There's some out there that are really cheap that, some of you got to do your due diligence. You've got to figure out the price for earning. One of the things I look at before investing in a company is how much cash do they have? Because I want to know, can they go through the bad times? So we know, for example, that Apple has enough cash that they've got over almost $1 trillion that they can just go out and buy other companies if they want to. So we know they can grow.
We know they're not going anywhere.
They're not going anywhere. And then you look at debt, because some companies have so much debt that you might not want to buy into them. So you've got growth stocks, and then you've got value stocks. And when we talk about a growth stock, then we're talking about a something like the bank stocks, or and then when we talk about a value stock, we're talking about a NIO, or we're talking about a stock that is low now, but we think it's undervalued. So it can go up. That's again is a value stock versus a growth stock.
All right. So once upon a time, and this is what kind of spurred this conversation on is. I called a broker a couple years ago because I wanted to do something for my daughter, right? And I was like, Suge has her own money. She's been collecting her own money since she was a kid, and I wasn't really paying a whole lot of attention to any of the apps. And granted, she's under 18, so you can't, technically, you can't get your kid in any of these apps unless you set it up for them. But I remember calling a broker, and I remember having a conversation, and they said to me, if you and your daughter aren't serious, you're not dropping at the minimum of 10 grand. I don't want to talk to you. Mm-hmm. And I was like, F you, go, I hope you sink or swim, whatever. But that was my mindset at that point. And I was like, here, I want to educate my kid. And like the people who you would call the experts to be in that space, wasn't doing it. And I think at that point, that's when I probably started talking to you a little bit more and in depth, and realizing that, for those people who are listening, you don't have to buy hundreds and thousands of shares of stock, right? And so I goof off. So I created a couple accounts just for Maria. Of course, they're in my name, where I will buy, 10 shares of stock, 20 shares of stock, at a low point. And then sometimes I'll sell all 20 shares. Sometimes I'll sell 5 of the 20 shares. But you can get into this space and kind of learn it before you get into big budget scenarios.
Exactly right. You're exactly right. And a lot of the big firms, they will not sell you a stock that's under $5. They call those penny stocks. And but so if you have an account, that's where Robinhood came in too, because they would allow people to buy those stocks that were under. But there was a lot of little things going on with Robinhood as far as lag time and how they were using your funds and your money. But the idea is that you can go in there and you can buy individual stocks by using Merrill Edge or E-Trade or something like that. I like going through with a broker because I don't want it to be too easy. I like to pick somebody's brains. I don't want to be a day trader. I think
so. What's
you have to
so
watch
I'm
that.
gonna jump in because I know Anitra on the live asked, where do you buy these stocks at? And there's a lot of places. Like there's a website called Market Watch. You can go in there. You can create like these fake portfolios or watch portfolios, mock portfolios. You can study stocks. You can look at your local newspaper. But buying, like I use Robinhood. I've used Stash for a couple of different things. Acorns is just more of a savings place. There's an E-Trade, right? If you were to broker, Merrill Lynch has their own dedicated app and platform. So there's a variety of places. Right now, a lot of people are using Robinhood. I would Google how to do it. And most people can set up an E-Trade account. That one's a little bit complicated to do it, but you can do it. I recommend definitely getting a separate checking account, right? Don't use your standard household checking account. Get an account where you can put money specifically in that space to invest.
Yeah, and those that have retirement accounts, think about getting a Roth because those are tax deferred. So you pay the taxes up front, but then every dollar you make after that, you don't have to pay taxes on it. So that makes a lot of sense. But also, like I said, you've got to do your homework. I remember I thought, man, I want to buy me some TikTok.
Yes.
And I could not. So I found out that one, TikTok was a Chinese company. Number two, it was a private company.
Okay.
So I couldn't buy. But then I found out about SoftBank. SoftBank had bought $4 billion worth of investment in TikTok. They were a Japanese investment bank. And so I couldn't get by TikTok, but I could buy SoftBank. So I bought some SoftBank for $25. And this was last year. So I bought some, when TikTok was just starting off. And it's at 40. SoftBank's at 41 today, so it benefited by owning TikTok, and they have a whole lot of other companies as well. But another area to look at 5G. Everybody's talking about 5G.
Yes.
So who have the patents for 5G? Well, you got Qualcomm, but then you've got smaller companies like Panasonic, Ericsson. These are foreign companies. But they've got patents that if you're going to do anything in 5G, you got to go to them.
So what you're saying is, sometimes we're looking directly at the company, and what we need to do is look at the companies that are invested in them. All right. And then B, we also need to look at the companies that are providing, whatever resources that they need to be successful. So there's a tier to this. It can be.
It's just a matter of paying attention. For example, everybody knows BlackBerry used to be hot.
My wife loved. Matter of fact, she was just playing with her old BlackBerry.
So BlackBerry is a Canadian company, right?
Yes.
And they just went down the tubes for whatever reason.
Okay.
Now they not about 2 months ago they were you could probably get them for like $4 a share.
Okay.
Wait a minute. I'm not. They were more than that, but they weren't much more than that. But the thing is, Amazon decided to use a product of BlackBerry, and then it shot up. And then when the people got into what was a company that they were GameStop.
Yeah.
Then they started playing with BlackBerry, and BlackBerry went way up.
Yes.
Same thing happened with Bed Bath and Beyond.
Yes.
I just happened to have some Bed Bath and Beyond because it was cheap. So I bought it when it was cheap. I bought some $5 or $6. I can't remember what I paid for for my BlackBerry, but it wasn't that much. But it went up. You sell it and then buy something that's a little more expensive. Like, some people you look at Visa versus MasterCard or Home Depot versus Lowe's.
Yeah.
Now, Home Depot pays more, and it's about probably $100 more. But I just soon get Lowe's and take that extra $100 that I didn't have to pay and buy something else. So now I got 2 stocks instead of one.
Instead of one. Okay. So now, do you hold on to your stock? So a lot of people, if you listen, if you don't invest in stocks, the 2 ways that I know you can make money buying into the stock market. One is actually purchasing the stock and selling it. So if you buy it low, you sell it high, and the difference is your profit position, right? Profit margin. The other way is that there are companies out here who pay dividends, right? And so once a company is performing at a certain level, the company itself can choose to pay its stockholders a dividend. Like, it could be 98 cents a share. It could be $1 a share. Now, do you ever hold?
Normally what happens is you're talking about the value stocks, like the bank stocks or AT&T, for example.
Okay.
AT&T pays a pretty good dividend, and usually those dividends are rolled back into the stock, so you just are buying more stock with that dividend, and you never really sit unless you can get cash and cash it out. But normally you just reinvest it. Depends on how much you have. But you made a good point in that everybody's at a different place in life. And, so some of us are just beginning. Some of us are more established. Some people believe in getting quality stocks. I believe in volume. And I tell you why.
So volume like 100 shares, million shares?
100 shares.
Okay.
Versus 20 shares. So somebody might get 20 shares of an expensive stock. I'd rather have 100 shares of a cheaper stock.
Okay.
That I believe is going to go up because I've done my due diligence. I've done some research. I've looked at what it's done over the last 52 weeks. I see what the target is. For example, Exxon. Exxon is like $40 a share, but Merrill Lynch says that they expect them to go up to $70 a share. Well, that's $30 difference within the next year.
Yes.
Now, it may happen and may not happen, but that's something that you might want to look at. But now, when I bought my SoftBank for $25 a share, in that particular case, I just happened to buy 300 shares. So when it went up to 45 shares, I sold 200, but I still got 100, so I can fall back on it. I still got my SoftBank, but now I can take the profit.
Yes.
And that's house money, and now I can buy another stock if I want to.
Realistically, someone could make a living. Like you could start doing this on your own without having a Series 7, being a broker, and make a living and not work for someone else.
People do that.
Okay, let's go.
These day traders do it. They do it puts and calls. I know a guy, but usually they've got a lot of money and they're able to do that. But everybody starts with something. Everybody started with nothing. Everybody didn't, so it can be done. I started with nothing and just started letting it grow.
Yes.
And so, I think I did some stupid stuff. Like I bought Amazon years ago for $60 a share.
Okay.
And, but I didn't buy but 60 shares. Well, now Amazon's worth $3,000 a share.
Let's go.
So, I've bought some stocks that I put in my personal money, just like you're doing, and now the stock's so high that I don't want to pay the taxes on it if I sell it. So I'm stuck with
taxes is a real thing, people. If you're investing, you got to pay income tax.
But as somebody said, well, if I got to pay that much in taxes, then I must be making some money.
True story.
So it's all relative. But
so yes. So I mean, you can't start out little. Like you don't have to. So here's I guess as I get it out my mouth, right? Because I'm stumbling here a little bit. When we talk about investing, my uncle gave me a great piece of advice when I was younger. And my father-in-law and a handful of other people just kind of, tripled down on it. You got to learn how to save, number one, right? If you have a savings account, it's important that you have enough in your savings that if everything went wrong today and you had to survive 6 months to a year without an income, that your household is still taken care of. Right. You have to have an umbrella account, and an umbrella account, or some people call it a rainy day fund. Right. So you want money in your rainy day fund. And that's if in that, and technically that's the account you mess with first before you mess with your savings, but you want them to kind of match each other. So, if you think about it, if you could in a real life have anywhere from, let's say, $5,000 in your savings account, $5,000 in your rainy day fund, right? Then you start building your investment account, right? And so let's say you want to get your investment account to particularly match your other two accounts, right? That way you don't risk your savings dollars, right? Which are really in a safe place. They're not earning a whole lot of money, but it's in a safe place. You can reach it. Your rainy day fund is strictly just that. You're going to keep putting money in your rainy day fund so that when shit hits the fan, you can go somewhere and pull it out, and it doesn't affect your savings or your investing space. But now when you put it in your investing space, that's kind of a high risk, even if you're a low risk person. That's still a high risk because you're gambling in a sense to say, I'm going to take $1 and I'm going to turn it into $2. Or I'm going to take $20 and turn it into $100. But I think you definitely want to have some goals and budget there.
But it's no different than you saying I want to start my own business.
True story.
And you're looking for clients and you're looking for product that you can sell them, that people will buy and then come back and you can.
Yes.
It's the exact same thing. You just got somebody else doing all the legwork. You got somebody else that's making the investments. You got somebody else that's doing all the heavy lifting. And all you're doing is getting the benefit of their labor. That's why it's important to choose the right stock and not just any stock, and to understand where the competition is and what is the product. Because I like to think that, like with the pandemic, you got all this testing.
Yes.
You got all these Toronto. They came out. And as soon as I heard that they said, okay, we can take your saliva and we can tell you whether you got the virus,
the COVID.
COVID. Well, I said, shoot, I'm going to jump on that. And it was pretty cheap.
Yeah.
But then I found out that the CEO was lying. He just wanted to make his stock go up.
Yes.
So his stock pulled back after people found out he was lying. Now I'm just making a little bit of profit on it because now it's gone back up because they did have some things in the pipeline. So, you've got to kind of, like I said, you've got to look and see what's in the pipeline. When you look at an Apple or Apple's $136 a share right now. That's a long-term hold, but they're going to go up.
Okay.
With all the products that they have. So, you look at the products and you look at the cost. There's a lot of electric cars that are trying to compete with Tesla right now. So you've got a company called Ride that looks promising. But there's all you got to do is think of what you see people doing every day and say, hey, Google, who makes this?
And hey, Google, who makes this? Or hey, Siri.
Are they a publicly traded company? And then they'll pull it up and then you'll and
look, we just said, "Hey Google," and the phones. Look, hey Siri, and the phones went on.
You tell Google, is it a publicly traded company, and it'll pull it up. And guess what? Then it'll show you another company similar to that you wasn't even looking for, and you may end up buying that company instead of the one you have. But so it's the same thing. You just got people working for you. I went out. You remember when Popeye came out with that fried chicken sandwich?
Who didn't? Let's go. Man, that was crazy.
I said, well, I got to try this sandwich because I've been hearing everybody talk about it. It took me 2 days to get that sandwich because the line was so long.
It wasn't that good either.
I liked it.
Okay.
But I tell you what.
Blacker than me.
I know. I ate it. I liked it. And you know what I did? I said, what company owns Popeye?
Yes.
And I bought that stock. And I made some money off
of
it.
One of the things to look at is market trends. So here's what I do. I got to take a bathroom break. I don't want y'all to leave me. Give us 2 minutes. We're going to take a quick break. Refresh your drinks, refresh whatever you got to do. If you've got some questions, throw them up on the Facebook or the YouTube. But we're going to be right back. And we're going to finish this. We're going to talk about trends, what to look for, and really specific to you. But we'll be right back.
Search me, know my heart, take out everything that isn't like you, God. I wanna be more like
Yo, this your boy Miguel, and welcome to Common Conversations. Yeah, that's it. 2020 is behind us. It was crazy. It was all kind of new. And yo, we know how to pivot. This is 2021. Let's get it in. And I want to have you on the show. Come podcast with me. Let's go live. Let's sit down and talk about all the good, the bad, the ugly, the green, the funny. Yo, y'all know how we do it. This is Miguel. This is Common Conversations, and I'm inviting you to come tell your story. Let's go. Yo, we're back. I appreciate y'all hanging with us. Thanks for sticking by. I had to really go to the little boys' room. I think it's all the water and the coffee, but whatever. So check it out. So one of the things that we were talking about is trends, right? Following trends. Like I invest in crazy stuff. Well, I think it's crazy. Apparently it's not crazy because they're publicly traded stocks. So like one of the things is as a photographer, you know, I work with a handful of models or different brands, right? So I invest in brands, or I invest in funds that invest in brands. So one of the things I pay attention to seasonally is lingerie, swimsuits, and so I will invest in companies who are invested in those spaces. So there's a company called Naked. Right. And so and they're a dollar stock. They're about $1.31. They go up and down all the time. But I have, so I have play shares, so I'm not a volume trader like M, but my short is I got 30 shares in it at like $1 and some change. And so it's been going up. And, because again, seasonally, like looking at trends that are happening, seemingly weed stocks are doing well. Do you jump in there at all in terms of the marijuana stocks?
Yeah, I've got a couple. Medical marijuana is a big business, and it's gone sky high in the last month. Most of them are held in Canada. It's an interesting phenomenon. I mean, what you're saying is you're paying attention.
Yeah.
So right now it's snowing, right?
Yes.
So what I do, I bought a company that makes generators.
Yes.
And in 9 days it's gone it's up 200 what is it? It's up $70 from when I didn't buy that much of it because it's too expensive, but I mean it's up $70 in a week, in less than a week. So
that's a win.
So so you think about the snow. Just think about the environment you're in. Like I said, I'd go and look and see who's buying Naked, what stores, where are they selling them at. What else is connected to that? You talk about the camera, then you talk about the lenses, and then you talk about all these cameras that you see on these telephone poles. That's in there, all these security cameras that are in every store.
Well, I mean,
you go into. Who makes that?
Yeah, I mean, because if you look at COVID right now, like one thing that happened, and I saw, and I didn't buy in, and I haven't really watched it to a certain degree, but there's a company called Black Magic that makes a lot of tech, right, for people who do live streaming, who are in video production. And I remember last year, people, churches were closing and people were like, oh my God, how are we going to get the message out? What are we going to do? And it's funny because I play a lot of video games, and my guy was like, Miguel, don't you stream? And I was like, yeah. And he was like, why don't you just help them? And I was thinking, oh yeah, you know what? I never really thought about that. Let's go do this. Let's take what gear we use to play video games with and turn it into these production stations. And honestly, that's what I'm using right now to do our podcast. But the people who make this were making a killing. Most of the retail stores couldn't keep, some of the least expensive of the gear.
And even like Activision and some of those that are making those games, I saw where the LA Coliseum had over 40,000 people watching other people play video games.
Yes.
And I said, well, if that many people are going to pay to do that, I need to get a piece of that. So I bought me some Activision.
Okay.
But you know, it's not that hard if you pay attention. I don't know whether you saw 60 Minutes last Sunday or not, but I watched 60 Minutes. You cannot imagine how many ideas I've gotten just watching 60 Minutes. 60 Minutes they had a company called FireEye. And FireEye is a company that found out that the government was being hacked by the Russians.
Okay.
And so I assume that their stock's going to go up. I think it was $21 a share. Something like that. So, like you said, you don't have to buy a lot. You can just buy some.
Yeah.
But you know,
Get your feet wet.
The name of the game, I think, is if you work for somebody that you can be vested in, then you need to make sure that you're vested in that company, and that when you leave that company, that you can take those dollars and then really get into the market. Or like you said, they used to say that if you bought your child a one share of GE when they were growing up, if you bought them one share a month, by the time they were 20, they'd be millionaires. You know, most of the employees they talk about that work for UPS. If they invest well when they retire, they'll be millionaires. You know, because that's how the stock. You know, you just.
So should we change? So those of us are out here and we're talking about wealth, and we're talking about, you know, bettering our lives for ourselves, our children, and we're really looking at this long term. Is this an opportunity where we're saying, you know, for Christmas, let's stop buying toys and let's put our kids in a better position by saying, you know, the $500 or the $2,000 that you're going to spend giving your kids something that's going to be shit and trash in a couple of years, you buy something and invest in them.
Instead of my wife bought her nephew, he loves Kyrie Irving, and so she was going to buy him some Nike stock.
Okay.
Because he loves shoes.
Yeah.
And we're going to look at it from a different point of view. We're going to buy you some Nike stock.
Gotcha.
And you know, same thing would be said with what's that other shoes?
I don't know. For me, Vans. My daughter loves Vans, and you know, Vans came out during the civil unrest and said, you know, we support, you know, all our customers and we support the black community heavy. So that would be a company that we definitely look at.
Yeah, Skechers.
Yeah,
a good example. You know, every time she comes back from the store, I look in her bag and whatever she got, I look and see whether I want to invest in it or not.
Okay.
You know, but I'm telling you, my brokers told me. We were fussing over whether it should be Ross or Bath and Beyond. He said, "Well, no, you need Bath and Beyond. They look better than Ross." I said, "No, but you ain't been in the Ross store. You know, you never seen so many people of color in a store than you when you go to Ross."
Yeah.
So I bought the Ross. I said, "Well, I'm gonna buy them both, and we'll see which one does what."
Okay.
Well, Ross has outperformed Bath and Beyond, and he was the expert.
Let's go.
You know, I mean, I performed 3-1.
So here's the other thing. You know, sometimes you are the expert, right? And you got to trust yourself. You got to trust your gut. You know, the person that you go to sometimes to help you is there for good advice, but they're not really the end all.
You know, they can help you with the long term. They're going to see some things that you're not aware of. But if you read up and study up on the stock market and how it works, I'm telling you can get some relatively cheap stocks that are going to go up. There's a lot of penny stocks right now. All these pharmaceutical stocks that are dealing with the COVID, many of them were under $1 a year ago.
Okay.
And now they're $17, $18, $20 a share. And then some. So, you know, if you can get in that lane and get comfortable and figure out, okay, this worked, this doesn't work, I can do this better. I can, you know, you just kind of learn as you go.
What do you think the next trend is?
Ooh, next trend, I still like energy, and I like this 5G.
Even though they say 5G is killing people?
Look.
Still a stock.
It's not a stock, it's a company. And,
okay, still a company.
And so it's, you know, I'm not buying the tower. I don't know what part of it's supposed to be killing people.
Got you.
But you know, I think technology, the Internet of Things, there's
Yes.
a chip in everything.
There
so I
is.
think of semiconductors, These chip stores, places, just unbelievable because from your refrigerator to your stove, everything has a chip in it. Your watch, your phone, So I'd say, find out who's making the chips and kind of go there
and go from there. All right, so check technology. I'm always gonna go with apparel, so definitely if you can find some really cool brands, definitely brands you like. Like you think about all the equipment that I'm using here. I've got the Rode mic setup. We've got HP monitors floating around. We've got the ATM from Blackmagic, both the Mini, the Pro. You think about the Canon. I say Canon, right? The cameras that we're using through Canon. These are all. Most of these are publicly traded companies. Or even more interesting is that you think about the software right now. Most of us were super familiar with Zoom, but very few of us were. There are a lot of people familiar, but there weren't a whole lot of people familiar with stuff like StreamYards, Restream.io, Captive.fm, and these are different platforms that people are using to podcast and the live stream with. What's more interesting is that these companies are not publicly traded, but the people who are investing in them, their investors are publicly traded. And so one of the things that Em was saying earlier is that, if you can't get into one of those companies, maybe you jump into those who are making money off of them. Because at some point, some of these companies are going to go public. And I know the company, for example, it's called Hopin. Hopin.com actually just did a merger or some type of acquisition with StreamYard, and Hopin.com, I believe, is a Korean-based company. And then there's one of the video games companies I play is called PUBG. They're a privately traded company, but they're a Korean-based company, and they just created a new company so that they can go public at some point in time, because there's this conversation about them, but they're $1 billion game creator. So you look at what your kids are doing. Look at that trend. Look at what older folks need. Your baby boomers and older. Look at what young folks need and are going to need to survive. As we're closed into our spaces and we're not getting out as much as we would like to. Look at the devices that you're using. Look at the apps and the programs and things that are streaming that are creating. Investing is not it's not easy, but it's not as hard as you think it is. And there's a lot of tools out there for us to learn. There's a bunch of groups on Facebook, social media, Instagram. You got Clubhouse where you can ask other people what they're doing. And importantly enough, you would be surprised how many people who are in your sphere of influence who do some trading, who do some investing, who might also impart some wisdom on you, so you don't have to go at it alone. But there's a lot of ways to do it. Get out here and share these apps. Get out here and look at opportunities to grow your wealth. Use your dollars wisely, and build a legacy for your kid. We're wrapping up, but before we leave, I appreciate you coming and hanging out on the podcast, on the live. I know it was a little wonky today, but again, that's technology for you. But would you any last words, anything you would part with folks, who've been hanging out and watching?
Well, I would say that one, I'm sure you'll get some of the experts, some real traders in here and can talk more specifics about trading and what to look for and the do's and don'ts of trading. And so that's going to be important. And then finally, I just want to thank you as always and ask you to continue to do what you're doing, because you're making a difference, and everybody can't say that. I will say that somebody's going to say, well, you talked about your father, but you never said his name. So his name's Dr. P.O. Sweeney.
Yes.
So that take care of that real quick.
And you got to talk about moms, because your mom's Duke wasn't, she wasn't no slacker. She was right there with him.
Mom was right there. She took over a farm when he died, and she got up and milked cows every day, and she was a school teacher. And gave all that up and took care of us. So no doubt she was 96 when she passed away in 2015. And I got to think that farm living didn't hurt none.
Nah, I mean, here's the thing. Wealth building is about family, right? No one can go about it by themselves. Friends, family, however you put it, whether it's blood or otherwise. You've got to have a team of people who help you get to where you're trying to go. Real talk. And you gotta be willing to listen. You gotta be willing to bump your head and take the bumps and bruises. But yeah, you got legacy in there. We matter of fact, have to get your dad on PBS or KET or something here soon, because there's no reason why our community's not as at large. I'm talking about the nation is not talking about him and a lot of other hidden heroes in the black community who have done a great deal of good. I said something on Facebook the other day, and I said most people will not live long enough to see their true influence. And your father was one of them, and think about it, 2-3 generations later, how much influence he still has because of things that he did while he was alive. And so, as folks are listening, the time is now. Don't wait. Folks like to tell everybody in this world to wait their turn, wait when it's their time. I want you to know right now, if you're alive, it's your time. Don't wait for anything or anybody. Get to moving. Wealth can happen today. It can happen tomorrow. You can start investing, tomorrow and be a multimillionaire if that's your goal in a couple of weeks or a couple of years. If your goal is to be out of debt or to just create a different level of resource stability, do know that money is not the only thing that can create that for you. It's just the one thing that we put more value on. But I will say this, time is the most valuable thing you have and the only thing that you cannot get back. So be cautious about where you invest your time, what you do. If you hung out with us, I greatly appreciate you. I love you. Like and hit that subscribe button. I don't usually ask, so I'm gonna start asking more often. I created a Cash App. I created a PayPal, because it does cost to do the damn thing, and I'm gonna keep doing it regardless, because I can. But I do appreciate everybody for hanging out with me. This was our stock conversation. We're gonna do more of this month. We're gonna introduce a lot more, and then I'm still, we still gonna have a Wild Out show too. So peace, love, and hair grease, my folks. Y'all have a good evening. Stay warm if you get hit with the cold. Yo, this your boy Miguel, and welcome to Common Conversations. Yeah, that's it. 2020 is behind us. It was crazy. It was all kind of new. And yo, we know how to pivot. This is 2021. Let's get it in. And I want to have you on the show. Come podcast with me. Let's go live. Let's sit down and talk about all the good, the bad, the ugly, the green, the funny. Yo, y'all know how we do it. This is Miguel. This is Common Conversations, and I'm inviting you to come tell your story. Let's go.
Start it up.
Power to the people, addressing the nation. Power to the people, what's the situation? Power to the people, addressing the nation. Power to the people, what's your situation? Power to the people, addressing the nation. Power to the people, what's your situation? They got cops in my city, the crime increasing, them laying down the street, but the kids still bleeding, right wing, left wing. I just wanna fly, we looking overseas, but it's war up in the shot. Everybody want jobs, everybody laying off. The greed that I done earned, it ain't really paying off. Trying to do right just to get a legal check. Ain't know I graduate to spend my life up in debt. Better work for myself, pick me up a trade, staring at the homeless man. I'm one check away, barely turn the TV on. Ain't nobody doing right to make things worse. They wanna take away our rights. Power for the dollar, greed to kill us all. Money for a war, that could feed us all. In God we trust, they kill me with that saying. Government, office, dominion, quit playing. Power to the people, addressing the nation. Power to the people, what's the situation? Power to the people, addressing the nation. Power to the people, what's your situation? Power to the people, addressing the nation. Power to the people, what's your situation? New virus every year, Ain't nobody safe. U.S. a corporation, they just have to get paid. Too big to fail, divide and to conquer. Send you off to war, let you die with honors. They got us all distracted, chasing after money. American dream got us looking like a zombie. Not to mention all the lies, covered up by crime. The wealth we possess came from genocide, terrorizing foreign land. All over game, bomb for control. Then laugh at they pain, had the media make the lie real big. Then you go and research it, used to make the lie big. Sitting in the land of Giza, thinking about my life. America has been at war for my whole life. When I talk to the kids, I gotta shoot them straight. Do for yourself, not in man, put your faith.
Power to the people, addressing the nation. Power to the people, what's the situation? Power to the people, addressing the nation. Power to the people, what's your situation? Power to the people, addressing the nation. Power to the people, what's your situation?
Barack yelling change, forget about it, brother. You work for the man, they ain't trying to help us further. We voted you in office unaware of the truth. Now you's a paid puppet, gon' do what you gon' do. Drone after drone, they make you take the blame. Regardless who in office, it's the same old game. Quote unquote, foreign affairs, suck the life out of Africa. Don't nobody care.
Power to the people, addressing the nation. Power to the people, what's the situation? Power to the people, addressing the nation. Power to the people, what's your situation? Power to the people, addressing the nation. Power to the people, what's your situation?